Yo, what's going on, guys? I know we don't commonly go over wrestling video games, other than sometimes 2K20 that I don't want to go back to, and of course Madden. 'Cause, anybody that watched my videos, even for over a year, they know that I'm an NFL guy. So I'll go over Madden once or twice or three times over a video, unless I want to poke around and talk shit over their SpongeBob garbage that I think they still have. But I want to go over something positive, and it has to be SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. In my opinion, the best wrestling video game in my lifetime, and probably one of all time next to SVR 11. I mean, no, SVR 11, 2K19, No Mercy, WrestleMania 16, WrestleMania 2000, and trying to find for another one, probably Days of Reckoning 2. Even though I've only played the three games that I've marked, but over most of the majority of wrestling fans that's probably been watching wrestling more than me, those are one of the higher games. Well, this was a personal one because that's when I first started wrestling. The first few years when I started wrestling, from like '05 to '06, that are, I think, my peak fandom of pro wrestling. And I had to say that there's been many things that made SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 one of the best games ever. A peak story mode that had continuous different stories overarching. Like, you're not gonna have one storyline. You're not gonna just move to SmackDown. You're not gonna have one storyline and it's gonna peek over to Raw. This goes over a full calendar of storylines that conclude with you winning the respective championship. You even gender bend in a segment the most memorable Road to WrestleMania storylines you're probably ever gonna have in the peak that in cartooniness, seriousness, and creativity that you get to control nearly every character, other than the later ones that have made you go over a select individual amount of superstars until I think it took until SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 that you actually get to customize your wrestler so you get Road to WrestleMania in some parts. Sometimes they'll give you select different storylines that kind of call back to the older storylines, but you get the point. Best best soundtrack of all time. By God, if people weren't into like the stuff they had for the WWE pay-per-view theme songs that actually were like New Rock, got you into Kid Rock, Non-Point, Breaking Benjamin, all the other like mid 2000 early to mid 2000 songs, or Metallica, or all the old school rock shit. What really made fans like now rapper and pop fans, when they were watching wrestling, they were rock fans. So what literally got your blood pumping, what made like pro wrestling fun, was also the theme songs. And whenever you heard like mm, Still Alive and Kicking, when the song comes, I still bop to that. I don't care. Whenever you hear that, you can tell like I'm ready to play a fun wrestling game. By the way, what else made SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 cool was anytime you kick off the game, you get the TV intro for both Raw and SmackDown. You either get Across the Nation or SmackDown's own theme song that they practically never change. Even though SmackDown at times were better than Raw, you watch Raw because of their kick-ass intro. Oh, I'm not gonna continue with that. But other than that, best roster. Nothing has felt more memorable than a roster in pro wrestling. Sure, we remember Attitude Era, but you also remember Ruthless Aggression. Thanks most of your like early 2000s mid carders turning into top guys. Batista, Orton, Christian. I mean, Christian wasn't there. Jericho, that was not there. Rey Mysterio, John Cena, that was more of a certified top guy later on after 2005. Kurt Angle's final appearance in SmackDown vs. Raw games. Uh, The Undertaker. Cruiserweights were still a thing. A lot of memorable periods were in 2006, and they even show in most of the game when it actually felt fun to unlock the stages. The gameplay was more intuitive. You actually had to grab the goddamn rope when you're going over a rope break than your one single pixel pinky going in and touching a damn rope for a rope break. It felt more intuitive. You even get to monitorly control in a submission hold where to grab the rope. It felt more like you were in control whenever you're in SmackDown versus Raw gameplay, and I just felt like I was more intuitive. Sure, it felt a bit robotic at times, especially over the control of how you run. And yeah, I think those were the only problems I had with it. Other than that, also another thing that makes SmackDown versus Raw 2007 great that also picked on later on, but then later in the games they made it super unrealistic. Weight detection. Uh, I think it was either Destroyer that made a brilliant video over why size matters in professional wrestling, and I completely agree, and it displays over there. Because you're not going to have the cruiserweights like Brian Kendrick coming around easily doing Michinoku drivers and body slams on the Big Show. The Big Show no sells it, stands him off, and then just clothesline him because they know if there's a cruiserweight versus a heavyweight, it's going to be a more one-sided fight. Even if Triple H face off against Kane, they know one's a super heavyweight, one's a heavyweight. Weight detection completely matters. And by the way, you get monitor control how to behave as a heel or a babyface dependent of the character that you choose. So if you want to act clean, you act clean. If you want to be a heel, you behave a heel. And over most outside fans, they'll get, okay, so this guy is going to be a dickhead. I'm going to try to cheat to win so we can get a better chance. It just felt like there was more of a monitor story, even when you're playing a random exhibition with friends. Plus, there was more select match types. Over most of what you see from old school 2K games. Sure, I like playing 2K19, and you can have monitor control and and freedom of control over what type of stipulations you have. It actually you have there hasn't been more variety in in wrestling games in general since the SmackDown versus Raw games. Casket matches, mixed tag matches, intergender matches, multi-man Hell in a Cells, and they actually felt more of an archaic, but can still be a realistic sense of fun. I mean, sure, it didn't pick up later when they had to move to next gen, because of course this was 2006. This is when the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 were about to thrive over to the next gen. And sure, it didn't pick up over there, but when it came, if you still had the PS2, you have SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. That felt like a real wrestling game. So when it comes to one of the best pro wrestling games, if you can still pick it up, or you can dust off your PlayStation 2 collection, because obviously if you, you have a PlayStation 2 and you're a wrestling fan, you probably have an old SmackDown versus Raw game. You got to pick up and play, or hell, get an emulator if you have a decent PC. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 will not only give you great memories, it's going to give you more inverse replayability, more higher chances over with customization, and plus it just feels like a fun game where not everything feels simulated. Like, even nobody asked for a hyper realistic game. We just want a more inverse game that feels like I'm in the world of WWE. Nobody wants this chain wrestling mechanic. Nobody asked for if I come around a side headlock, you drag me over to the ropes. And nobody wants a wrestling game to feel that choreographed. That's why even casual fans even leave the current product to this day. And or even why 2K games even lost the popularity that it once had with old fans. Because they're trying to be too realistic for the eye that it loses the grab of fans. Plus, they don't have dedicated servers for the previous games. So if 2K loses interest, they can give up a third party. They give fans more of a shared community, so they can actually play their old damn games. I don't know why fans don't do it. Call of Duty does it. And it's not even big to play multiplayer anymore. It's big to play battle royale now. I mean, I'm not the big guy on that, but I do play Apex. But that's besides the point. But uh, yeah, that's what I think is holding also 2K back is replayability that obviously SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 has. But by God, just mark, just no. This is why many people talk about it. The graphics from the gameplay to the enrolled stories to I think they also had GM mode, the roster to their soundtrack. That's what makes a fun ass wrestling game. Sure, I played some of Days of Reckoning. Here Comes the Pain also is a good one. But when it comes to just, and this is my own personal preference, but it's also like also a great game. That's how to make a wrestling game, in my opinion. Not too much arcade, too much realism, and that much of a fun factor that it's enough to play for years on end. And I think even current games outside of just a wrestling video game get an issue with this. So, that's it coming from this video. Comment down below how you feel. Hell, even share to me what's your favorite wrestling video game. Thanks for watching. That's it for me.